Today's Shiur is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmosoi, Harav Shimon Arya Leib ben Rabbi Yecheskel Chaim, the father of our dear and wonderful friend, Rabbi Eckstein. Rabbi Shimon Arya Leib was a Choshev Arav, a manig of his Kehillah and a Marbitz Torah. The Torah we learn today is so appropriate, it should be Le'ilui Nishmosoi HaTohara. Shianuach b'sholom al mishkavai, and he should be a melech yosha for the entire wonderful, beautiful family. This week's Parsha is Parshas Kisavai, and of the various mitzvahs I chose one that is especially appropriate for Chodesh Elul, because we're all in the spirit, in the ruach of Chodesh Elul. V'holachtu bidrochov. This is a mitzvah that appears 3 times in different variations in Mishnah Torah, Chumash Devorim. Parshas Eikev, lo lachas b'chol drochov. Parshas Re'ei achrei Hashem Elokeichem telechun. And this week's Parsha, Parshas Kisavoi. V'holachtu b'drochov. We find 5 different interpretations in the Rishonim. V'holachtu b'drochov. The Rambam, Sefer HaMitzvahs, Mitzvahs Asei Chet, says, V'holachtu b'drochov, mahu rachu, mafatu rachu, mahu chanun, afatu chanun. It is a mitzvah asei, and the essence of this mitzvah is try to emulate the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He is merciful. You need to be the same. The Smag, another one of the great Rishonim, that wrote a Sefer HaMitzvahs, Mitzvahs Asei Zayin. The Smag follows in the footsteps of the Rambam regarding the structure of Sefer HaMitzvahs. The Rambam split the list of Taryag into 2 different categories, Mitzvahs Asei and Mitzvahs Lo Ta'aseh. The Smag did the same. Sefer HaChinuch, for instance, goes from 1 to 613. Lefi Seder HaParshios. Many Rishonim follow in the same way. Smak, Sefer Yereim. The Smag and the Rambam have the same structure. But while the Rambam's interpretation of Mitzvah Chet is Mahu Rachum, Mafatu Rachum, the Smag in Mitzvah Asei Zayin says Mahu Mal B'Sharumim, Mafatu Hal Beish Arumim. In the Gemara, these are 2 different droshes. Soiti Yudalad Omed Aleph. The Gemara deals with the posuk Achrei Hashem Elokeichem telechun, and the Gemara says Mahu mal b'sharumim, mafatu mal b'sharumim, Mahu mavakacholim, mafatu bakercholim. Shabbos Kuflim at Gimel Omid Beis. The Gemara deals with another posuk Zekeli va'anvehu, and the Gemara says va'anvehu havei domelo. You should be like a Kodesh Baruch Hu in a way. Mahu chanun afatu chanun, mahu racha mafatu rachu. So the Rambam takes the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Lamed Gimel, which is based on another posuk, Zeh Keli v'anvehu, and he connects it with V'holachtu b'drochov, while the Gemara on Achrei Hashem Elokeichem telechun says Gemilas Chosodim. So the Smag follows mamish in the footsteps of the Gemara Soiti Yudalet. Now the Gemara has so much appeal to me, the Pashtus and the Yashrus. Zekeli v'anvehu is havei domelo. When a person wants to be like an other, what does it mean to be like him? What defines a person? Not his actions and deeds, but his character. That is him. A great thinker once said, "You're not what you think you are, but what you think you are." So when the Gemara says Havei domelo, it is character. It is midos toivos. Mahu chanun afatu chanun, mahu racham afatu rachum. But when the Gemara deals with the pasuk V'holachtu b'drochov, Achrei Hashem Elokeichem telechun, following in his ways means what does he do? Where does he go? Follow him. And that is why the Gemara says, Achrei Hashem lekechem telechun, mahu mal b'sharum, ma'afatu al b'sharum, mahu mavak echolim, ma'afatu bak echolim. Now, these two concepts are similar, but they're not identical, they're not the same. We might define them as two sides of the same coin, but they're not the same side of the same coin. Mahu rachum is midois toivos. Mahu mal b'sharumim is gemilus chasodim. This is an attitude, a feeling, midois, and these are mice, and these are actions and deeds. They're not the same, even though they're closely related. So why does the Rambam take the posuk v'holachtu b'drochov and interpret the posuk in accordance to Divrei Chazal, which deal with Zekeli Vanveyu? The Rambam has a source in Chazal, a more fundamental and more important source than the Gemara, and that is the Safri. The Gemara is Divrei Amirom, the Safri is Divrei Tanoim. Safri and Parsha say, K'volachtu b'drochov mahu rachum, afatu rachum, mahu chanun, afatu chanun. But I think there's an additional reason why the Rambam prefers the Safri and not the Gemara. Rambam l'shito soy, Perek Yud Alad Aloch Aleph, the Rambam writes, Gemilas chasodim begufoi are mitzvahs derabanan. And the Rambam gives us the list. Achnoses orcham, achnoses kala, biko choylem, nichum avelem, levoyes ameis, lesameach osam vekala. All these are gemilas chasodim begufoi, and they are all included in the mitzvah of v'yohavtu l'reachu kamoicha. So the Rambam learns gemilas chasodim from v'yohavtu l'reachu kamoicha, so we don't need the posuk achrei Hashem lekechem telechem for gemilas chasodim. We have a different source for gemilas chasodim, and that is v'yohavtu l'reachu kamoicha. And that is why the Rambam prefers the drosh of the Sefri. Achrei Hashem lekechem telechun midois toivos. Ma'u chanun, ma'u rachum, af atu chanun, af atu rachum. So whatever the Rambam writes in Sefer HaMitzvahs, he writes at greater length and elaborates in Mishnah Torah. In the introduction to Sefer HaMitzvahs, in the Akdama, the Rambam says that I plan to write Mishnah Torah. And it is there that I will give you a more lengthy discussion, and I will fill in all the details. Protein, hilchoisein, v'dikdukein. So the Rambam writes in Sefer HaMitzvahs, V'olachta b'drochov, chanun v'rachov, midas toivis. And a Perek Aleph of Virchas Deis, the Rambam writes Barichas Gedolah at great length. The Rambam discusses midas toivis. And the Rambam writes, you always need midas toivis with moderation. Not the extremes. Keep away from the extremes. Go in middle of the road. Besides two midos in which we should be extreme. One is another. Ma'oid havei shval ruach. That's a Mishnah. Sechet Avos. And the other is kas. Be tolerant. Don't be angry. Don't be offensive. Don't be rude. Lesrachek men hakas umen hagaiva. Ad Ketzei Hador. But the Rambam Perek Aleph Aloch Ha'ei Aloch Avov writes that all these midas toivis we learn from V'holachtu b'drochav. Rambam l'shitos, a Sefer HaChinuch follows in the steps of the Rambam. Like always, Mitzvah Tov Reish Yud Aleph. Ramban ala Torah in Parshas Re'ei, the posuk of Achrei Hashem Elokeichin Telechun. The Rambam writes that Pshat in the posuk and in this mitzvah is we should follow and listen to Nevi'ei Emes and not from Cholmei Chaloimos, Nevi'ei Sheker, liars and cheats. We should follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'fi avodav HaNevi'im. And that is a third Pshat. But if that is why the way that Rambam explains this mitzvah, so why doesn't he dispute and reject the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs? The Ramban is the big parplukta of the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs. So to me it is clear that Ramban is not choylek on the Rambam. The Ramban is mefarish the posek pshutoi shel mikra kederech rabbeinu v'rishonim mefarshei haTorah. And we cannot deny or ignore pshutoi shel mikra. We need to read the context in Parshas Re'ei. And that is why I'll read with you from Posek Gim Beis to Posek Hey. כי יוקם בקרבך נובי או חולם חלוים ונוסן עליך אויס או מויפס, ובוהו אויס והמויפס אשר דיבר עליך לאמור, נלכו אחרי אלוהים אחרים, אשר לא ידעתם ונעובדיהם. לא תשמע דבר הנובי ההוא או חולם החלוים ההוא, כי מנס השם אלוקיכם אסכם, הישכם אוהבים את השם אלוקיכם בכל לבבכם ובכל נפשכם, אחרי השם אלוקיכם תלכו, אויסוי תיראו ואסמצויסוף תשמעו וכל לא תשמעו, ואויסוי תעבודו ובוי תדבקון. So the context is very clear. Do not hearken and do not listen to Nevi'ei Sheker that want to take you away from the Dvekes and Mitzvahs. Achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon. However, Droshes Chazal are Teres Emes, and that is Kabbalah's Chazal. And Chazal say Achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon, Halech bidrochav v'gimeles chosorim, and that is why the Ramban does not disagree with the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs. Pshuto Shel Mikro is one thing, and the Rosh's Chazal and Mesoides Chazal is another. Biur HaMarshal al HaSmag. When the Smag says, Volachtu b'drochav achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon, Mal b'sharumim, Mevake choilem, Gimeles chosorim, Marshal says, but l'choyre, pshat in the posek is, l'shmoya medivrei chachamim, v'lilmoid mehem halacha. And the Marshal is a pele be'inai. L'shmoya medivrei chachamim is a totally different concept and a different source. Shabbos chov gimel amud aleph. Asher kedishonu b'mitzvos v'tzivonu lahadek ner shel Chanukah. Heichan tzivonu melo yisosu. Mitzvah l'shmoy divrei chachamim is not achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon, it is lo yisosu. At first glance, Bashkuf Rashonim, the Mishal is similar to the Ramban. The Ramban says l'shmoy b'fi ha-neviim, and the Mishal says b'fi ha-chachamim. But it's totally different. When prophets walk the land in b'yamei kedem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Klal Yisrael b'fi avodav ha-neviim. They are the direct messengers. And what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to tell us, He tells us al yedei ha-neviim. And the neviim are the transmitters. They are the medium, telling the people what they heard from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is directly achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon, and that is the context of the pasuk. Chachamim is a totally different concept. Lo yisosur makol asher yagidu lecha. They have full authority, but they don't speak directly what they heard from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chitshu ma shechitshu, kiblu ma shekiblu. So it's not mistaver klal that this posuk achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon has anything to do with the mitzvah l'shmoy b'divrei chachamim. Sefer HaYereim was also one of the great Balei HaTosfos, Rabbi Elazar Memeitz, and he wrote Sefer Mitzvahs, Sefer HaYereim. Tov Ches. V'olachtu b'drochav, the Yereim claims this is a mitzvah klolis. V'olachtu b'drochav l'shmor al kol mitzvos Hashem. Taryag mitzvahs, mitzvot aseh v'mitzvahs loisas. If that would be the opinion of the Rambam, he wouldn't count it, because one of the Yesodis in the Rambam, in the Shroshim of Sefer HaMitzvah, says mitzvahs kloliyos are not in the Taryag. There are many mitzvahs kloliyos in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu pleads with us and commands us again and again and again. Watch out, keep all my mitzvahs. Benafshechu adavar, uvecharto b'chayim. Taryag mitzvahs, according to the Rambam, are specifics, not generalities. But Sefer HaYereim says, Volachto b'drochav is a mitzvah klolis. But on the other hand, Kuf Nun Gimel, Kuf Nun Daled. On the Posek Achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon, Yereim combines the two chazals. And that is interesting and unique. Sefer HaYereim writes, Achrei Hashem Elokechem telechon, liois chanun mal b'sharumim mevake choilem. He combines Soiti Yudalad and Shabbos Kuf Lamed Gimel. Mahu Chanun Afatu Chanun. Mahu Mal B'Sharumim Afatu Mal B'Sharumim. So we saw before the Rambam interprets Mahu Chanun Afatu Chanun based on the Sifri. The Smag Mahu Mal B'Sharumim based on the Gemara Soiti Yudalad. Sefer HaYereim ties them both together. So let me explain this. I explained before they're not the same. This is Midas Tovis, this is Gemilas Chosodim. But they definitely are connected. Two sides of the same coin. Rachmonas v'chemla and Gemilas Chosodim. Gemilas Chosodim is the result of Chanun v'Rachum. They're not the same, as I explained before, clearly, but they're related. Two sides of the same coin. And the Areim says both of them are included in Many times I explained Shleimus Ha'odam requires both. Sometimes you know people who are wonderful people, people of compassion and loving and caring, but for various reasons are not engaged in Gemilas Chosodim. They don't do Maasem Tovim. Could be many reasons. One is just lazy. The other is hungry for money, a roidev betza. And he's so busy making business and making money, he doesn't have time to help others. The other might be the greatest masmid in town. He gives shiurim all day, he learns all day, and he thinks mistakenly that because I'm learning all day, I'm potter from Gemilas Chosodim. All three are wonderful people, but they're not engaged in Gemilas Chosodim. On the other hand, sometimes you get to know a person who's busy all day with chesed. He runs a gemach, he runs a tzedakah organization, he's a fundraiser. But when you get to know him, you realize he's not a good person. He doesn't care about others. So why is he busy with Gemilas Chosodim? Could be for many reasons. Maybe he's getting a good salary. Maybe he's getting a lot of kavod. And maybe he's a real tzaddik, and he knows that this is an important mitzvah, but he doesn't really care for people. Elu ve'elu did not achieve shleimus. Shleimus of a Jew is the combination of both. Both sides of this coin. On one hand, haveidoim aloi, mahu rachom, afatu rachom. On the other hand, you need to be engaged in Gemilas Chosodim, mahu malbish arumim, mahu mevaker choilem, afatu baker choilem, valbeish arumim. However, the Areim brings them both together because they are so closely related. So let's go over to the other part of this sugya. You have to l'reacha kamoicho. The Rambam writes, this is the source for Gemilas Chosodim. How? Why? So the Rambam's interpretation of you have to l'reacha kamoicho. You should relate to other people like you would like them to relate to you. And everything you would expect other people to do for you, you should do to others. And therefore, if you, Chas v'Sholom, would be ill, you would like people to come and visit you and help you. If you're marrying your daughter, you would like people to come to the chassan and be misameach your children. You should do the same. And if you're hungry and you don't have where to stay, you would hope somebody will invite me to his house. I'll die from hunger. You should do the same. So the Rambam's interpretation after Achkamoichu, it's not only an emotion, it's not only love. It's very easy to say, I love everyone. We need to test that love. The after Achkamoichu is everything you would like other people to do for you, you should do for others. Kol ma she'ato roitze she'yasu acherem lacho, say ato la'acherem. Does this ring a bell? Does it sound familiar? Of course it does. You remember the story, Shabbos Lamed Aleph for Medalef Ger, a convert came to Shammai and he says, Ga'ereni al mana shetelamdeni kol ha'torah kol ha'regel achas. Shammai threw him down the stairs. Not really. Dochoi ba'amasa binyan asher biyadoi. He had a beam, he was a builder, and he pushed him away, shoved him away with a beam in his hand. And he came to Hillel. And Hillel, the great Savlan, says, what you would not like others to do to you, you don't do to others. Don't hurt, don't damage, don't cause pain and suffering. So the Rambam gives us the same principle, but in a positive connotation, not in a negative one. Hillel's formula is a negative one. What you hate others to do to you, don't do it to others. But the Rambam gives us the same idea, the same thought, in a positive connotation. The Marsha, Shabbos Lamed Aleph, doesn't bring the Rambam. The Marsha rarely brings Poskim. He was the greatest of Parashonim, but he doesn't bring Poskim. But the Marsha writes, why is Hillel formulating this idea in a negative way, and why not in a positive way? So the Marsha writes, V'yahavta komocho is essentially a negative concept. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want them to do to you. But regarding the positive context, no. It's too much to expect from a person. But the Mashal does say that this idea, Mad al-Achsani, is v'yohavtu l'reachu kamoicho. But the Gemara doesn't mention v'yohavtu l'reachu kamoicho. Tagam Yonasim ben Uziel and Parshas Kedoshim, v'yohavtu l'reachu kamoicho quotes it al Mad al-Achsani l'chav l'chlotavid. And this is very interesting. Who was Yonasim ben Uziel? The greatest disciple of Hillel HaZaken. And that's Sukkot Daf Ches. So the Marsha was machavan to Yonasim ben Uziel Baruch HaKodesh. Yonasim ben Uziel was a disciple of Hillel. Probably he learns from Hillel. He uses Hillel's language. So the Marsha argues it is only in the negative sense, not in the positive one. But the Rambam, on this very same mitzvah, after the Rambam gives us the positive formula. My interpretation would be, this ger that came to nag Shammai and Hillel seems to be somewhat of a mishugana. Maybe it's too harsh language. What are you, out of your mind? You want to learn Kol HaTorah Kula Rega Nachas? You know what Kol HaTorah Kula is? Person lives 100 years, he can't learn Kol HaTorah Kula. And you know what Taryag Mitzvahs is? What an undertaking. How do you expect to learn Kol HaTorah Kula Rega Nachas? The Marsha has a fascinating interpretation. And he says, Kol HaTorah Kula Rega Nachas. The Ger was clearly aware that Jews have Taryag Mitzvahs. But he wanted to know, could everything be based on one fundamental principle, one fundamental and basic idea, which branches out to many mitzvahs? Shammai says no. It is symbolic. Dochoi ba'amasa binyan. Shammai means to say, could you build a house with only one foundation? You're crazy. That house will implode in no time. A house needs to have many yesoides, many foundations, and many beams. And that is why Dochoi b'amasa binyan asher b'yodoi. You're trying to build a skyscraper with one yesoid? Hillel says, yes. And according to the Marsha, I think it is quite clear. Hillel bears in mind Rebbe Kiva. Well, Rebbe Kiva was a disciple of a disciple of a disciple of Hillel HaZaken. Yochanan Mezakah was a Talmud of Hillel. Rebbe Lezer Rebbe Shua, Talmid Rebbe Yochanan Mezakah. Rebbe Kiva was a Talmud of Rebbe Lezer Rebbe Shua. But Rebbe Kiva says, "V'after Rachkamoich was a klal gadol b'Torah," and Hillel is looking for a klal. What is a klal gadol? Kol HaTorah Kula Rega Lachas. Mad al-Achsani l'chav l'chotav. And Yonasim ben Uziel and the Marsha says, that is the mitzvah of V'yohavta l'reacho kamoicho. So if the Rambam teaches us in a positive connotation, why does Hillel use the negative one? Libi yoimeli. My interpretation would be, well, this ger, as I said before, is somewhat of a nudnik. And Hillel and Shammai justly rejected him. Dochoi b'amasa binyan. Hillel understands, I need to give him something fundamental and something minimal. What is the minimum requirement to start appreciating Torah? V'yahavta l'reacho kamoicho, in the minimum sense, in the minimal sense. The positive connotation is included in the idach pirusha, zeh gemar. Hillel clearly tells this ger, don't think this is all. No, it's just It's just the beginning. But Hillel feels I must give him the most fundamental and the minimal, which is required. And that is Madalach Sani Lechavrech Lo Ta'avid. But it's not the entire picture. Ve'idach Pirusha. Zil Gemor. I just want to make one point which I feel is very important. To me it is clear. When Hillel says, Madalach Sani Lechavrech Lo Ta'avid, when Rebbe Kiva says, V'ahavta Re'acha Kamocha Ze Klal Godel B'Torah, it is in the system of Ben Odom L'Chaveroi. Ben Odom L'Mokorim has different Yesodis. And let me make this very clear. V'ahavta L'Re'acha Kamocha is not more important than V'ahavta Es Hashem Elokecha. Because some people think, V'ahavta L'Re'acha Kamocha, that's it. No. V'ahavta Es Hashem Elokecha is at least as important and fundamental as V'ahavta L'Re'acha Kamocha. More. Because the Yesod of Avodas Elokim at the end of the day is between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So V'ahavta L'Re'acha Kamocha is a Klal Godel B'Torah. V'ahavta Es Hashem Elokecha Klal Godel Heimeno. When Rebbe Kiva says Ze Klal Godel, he means in one half of the Torah. Ben Odom L'Chaveroi. When Hillel says Madalach Sani Lechavrech Lo Ta'avid, he is relating to one half of Torah, which is Ben Odom L'Chaveroi. So today we discussed two different concepts which interact. Midas Tovis on one hand and Gemilas Chesodim on the other. Two sides of the same coin. And they are so important and fundamental, both of them. Every day, every moment, especially Chodesh Elul. Especially Chodesh Elul. Mi yizke lefonechu b'din. We don't have a chance. Our only hope, only chance, only option is Midas Orachamim. Mi yizke lefonechu b'din. Chas v'sholem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will judge us by Midas Adin. We're lost. We're doomed. Our only hope is Midas Rachamim. So what are the means in which we could achieve and bring about that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should judge us berachamim? Hashem tzilcha. Mido keneged mido, bederach she'od hamoeded modedim lo men hashamayim. The Pasuk says Hashem tzilcha. There's a beautiful pshat. The two giants in the two corners. The Kedushas Levi, the Baditcha V'Tzadik, one of the giants in the history of Hasidus. Rab Chaim Evolozhin and Nefesh HaChaim, first and foremost amongst Talmidei HaGoen. So the Pshuta Shel Mikra, Hashem Tzilcha is, Kodesh Baruch Hu is your shade, which means like a person sitting under a tree, under a roof, and he has the protective tzeil that keeps him out of the scorching sun and the torrential rain, keeps him dry and comfortable. But the Nefesh HaChaim and the Kedushas Levi say, it is like tzel shel adam, like your shadow. Not the tzel above your head, but the tzel that you make. A person cannot escape his shadow. Every movement he will do, his shadow will do as well. You cannot escape your shadow. You can do nothing, and your shadow won't do the same. And that is Hashem Tzilcho HaYoshev B'Meroimim. He's examining us, he's watching us, and the way we act and react and interact with our friends, with other Jews, that is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts, reacts, and interacts with us. Hashem Tzilcha. B'midish odam moided in loy. So what are the sgulas? Bein odam l'chaveroim. Shabbos Kuf Nun Aleph. Kol ha-malachim al abriyas malachim ha-molam min ha-shamayim. Rashoni Yud Zayin. So in these days we should be merciful. We should be forgiving. We should be caring and compassionate. We should care for each and every Jew and try to help each and every Jew. And then we will be Zoche to Midas Harachamim. And that is our only hope. Achim Yekorim al Toreo. Take some time to think. Does anybody need my help? Can I make anyone happy? Do I know anyone that is in pain, that is in suffering? Anyone that might be angry? Be forgiving, be merciful. Be kind, be compassionate. And it is then that we will be Zoche, that HaKadosh Baruch will judge us b'midas uracham, b'nafshenu hadara. So let us try and let us hope. Kodesh Baruch Yerachem Aleinu, and we should have a good gebench aksiv etoiv, aksiv ochasim etoiv, besifron shel tzadikim gemurim biyachadem kol beis Yisrael, and it should be a shnas geula v'yeshua b'mheira v'yomeinu amen.